Gas Energy, and Miller Lite. Here are your hosts, Jeff Joniak, a.k.a. the Mayor of Bearsville, and his sidekick, Tom the Surfmaster Thayer.
Final week of the season. It's the last frontier at Super Bowl 60 with Seattle taking on New England in Santa Clara, California. We'll touch on that, but this is Bears Weekly on ESPN 1000 of the Bears Radio Network with Super Bowl winning Bears guard Tom Thayer. I'm Jeff Joniak and former quarterback Jim Miller from the Bears and SiriusXM NFL Radio, our weekly contributor now here in the offseason. And we're getting close to the draft season, the business season, a lot to discuss. Hope you guys are doing well. We got our usual cast of characters, Dan Briley, Jordan Tredup, and Katie Fox, our producers. Our executive producer of the Bears Radio Network is Eric Ostrowski. Kendra Smith helping us out in studio tonight in the ESPN studios. Fellas, how we feeling? Tom and Jim, have you put your thinking caps on about the Super Bowl, or is it just now enjoyment for you because you're looking forward to what's next for the Bears? How you thinking, Tommy?
Jeff, I got to tell you, I live a people's life. I live the normal everyday guy. I go to the grocery store, the gas station, the dry cleaner, and everything. And the closer the Super Bowl comes, the more the conversation to the Bears it revolves around. Because the Chicago Bears fans, whether young or old, they recently got a taste of success. And they saw what can be, what could be, and what the possibilities are. So, yeah, on the approach to the Super Bowl, because there's an East Coast team and there's a West Coast team, there's not a lot of conversation about the Midwest except for the Chicago Bears. So I love the fact that the topic is not losing interest to the everyday Chicago Bear fan, that they have as much interest in the future as they do the present. And it's not necessarily this Super Bowl. It's about what could come of the Bears quickly.
Jim, it's interesting. Yeah. I think he just called himself the everyman, and I don't know, does that put us in a different category that we're not going to the grocery store?
Yeah.
He's putting us in a corner.
Yeah, I agree with that. Well, it just seems like, the talk I hear like at the local party store when I'm filling up the gas tank at the gas station, just like Tom does, but everybody just thinks Seattle is going to walk all over, the New England Patriots. And I think for Bears fans, it's exciting when you see a second-year quarterback like Drake May. He's being considered for MVP. He's guided his team to the Super Bowl, and I just think it'll be a closer game than what people think. But it's possible. Look what the Patriots did with the first-year head coach. Granted, he's coached before, but what the job Mike Vrabel has done, when you look at a team that has a lot of money in free agency that they can spend salary cap-wise, and how they wisely chose the free agents that they did, and, of course, their draft picks, and how they've hit on their draft picks like Drake May. And look what that's made possible. They're in the Super Bowl, so why not for the Chicago Bears? Every Bears fan should be excited that they can get this done and maybe take a step forward next year with what they've built this year.
Yeah, where you draw the similarities, Mike Vrabel, no nonsense, like Ben Johnson. They set the standard from the first team meeting. This is how we're going to be, and they checked all those boxes. Same story for the Bears. Then you look at Mike McDonald, similar. I think it's 2 years and 5 days since he was hired as head coach of the Seattle Seahawks as we sit here right now, and he'll be in a Super Bowl trying to beat a team that he grew up loving, the New England Patriots. So there is a lot of discussion now with all of these changes in the NFL about, hey, our owners looking at this and saying, hey, because guys like McDonald, guys like Ben, immediate success, Mike Vrabel, that is now what is expected. We know that's not going to be true for a lot of cases. There is bigger picture view of things because of ownership, because of your front office, because of personnel you have on the field. That also has to play a factor in it, Tommy.
Well, Jess, let me ask you a question. Have you gone and looked at next year's opponents to see how many new head coaches that we'll be facing next year?
I have them underlined. The new, it's going to be Buffalo, Miami, Atlanta on our schedule. So that's it from there. But the coordinators, there's a bunch of change in the last 2 years. So we get New England, the Jets, New Orleans at home. Those will be second-year head coaches. Jacksonville at home, that's a second-year head coach. So, yeah, it's within the last 2 years.
Yeah, see, I think that's the great unknown going into next year because we've learned a little bit about Ben Johnson, but I believe we have so much more to learn. But then when you look at around the league and you talk about head coaches, the coordinators, both offense and defense, I think that's the kind of the great unknown when you go where you're going to play them, when you're going to play them, who are their major figures on the offense and defensive side of the ball. And so when you look at that, there's going to be a lot more exploratory interest in the season, when you play them, where you play them, and all those kind of details, because I think the opponents are going to be so significantly different.
Jimmy, I think there's going to be 18 new offensive coordinators. Now, not all of them are going to be play callers.
Right.
Obviously, the Bears still have an opening for that position yet to be filled. And I think 13 new defensive coordinators, and those guys are more than likely going to be the play callers. I don't have it memorized in any way, but that is a title shift in changing one off season.
It is, and there's a ripple effect. Look at Detroit. When they lost Ben Johnson and they lost Aaron Glenn, there was a ripple effect with how it affected their team. And we always talk about it. Coaching matters, especially good quality coaching like those guys. And it's great that they've advanced, but look what happened to Detroit with what Dan Campbell had to do. He had to take over play calling for that team. I see that they recently hired Drew Petzing to be their offensive coordinator. But look at Green Bay. Fortunately for Green Bay, they lose Jeff Hafley, but, I still think that they're going to be okay because they've got a really powerful offense. But Hafley did a really good job when he came in there. That was one of the, they had a top 10 defense and a top 10 offense. Fortunately for Minnesota, they get to keep Brian Flores. I think we know what a quality play caller he is on the defensive side of the ball and what he's done for the Minnesota Vikings. So change is always, every year it's going to happen in the NFL, and there's going to be a ripple effect. Absolutely.
All right, let's take a look at what's going on up at Hallis Hall. Yes, a couple positions need to be addressed now that Declan Doyle is the Baltimore Ravens offensive coordinator, reportedly per the Tribune. Running back coach Eric Studesville, who was with the Bears starting in 1997 when I got started. So that is not made official by the organization just yet. But 2 years in Miami with Ben Johnson, so familiarity there, Tom. And he's coached 12 different 1,000-yard running backs in his career.
Yeah, and he's a no-nonsense guy. I think he's a guy that would come in here and fit perfectly if he was the running back's choice here. He's got a familiarity with the building and the fan base and the division and everything else that goes along with kind of expediting the responsibilities of a position coach of that importance, because it's not a one-man job anymore. It's a full arsenal job. And so the requirements of the running back position, if you line up in the backfield to the line of scrimmage, there's a lot of details that coach has to be familiar with as quickly as possible.
Yeah, I remember Eric Studesville. That is a quality coach. And he was very young at that time back with the Chicago Bears. But look what he's done coaching-wise since he's left the Bears. At one point, he was an interim head coach, I believe, out there in Denver.
Yep.
So a lot of quality experience there. That is a good football coach if they do indeed add him.
And tonight is awards night, NFL honors. Ben Johnson, one of the finalists for Coach of the Year, the worst to first, and too deep in the playoffs. We talk about it all the time. It started with that first meeting. Let him know. And he set the course for a transformative season. It goes back to training camp, honestly. No-nonsense training camp. Tom and Jim, you were both there. It was tough. It was intense, unrelenting, hard. Players said it was the hardest they've ever experienced in their careers, and I don't expect it to change, Tom.
I wasn't there in 84, but I know training camp in 85 was no easier. And so when we went through the paces in 85, I think it kind of set the message early in the season of what the head coach's expectations were in the big picture of this team. And so I expect the same from Ben Johnson. Like you said, from the moment he walked up to the podium, he sent a clear message, and he never deviated from that. And that's kind of what I really appreciate most about Ben, is he wasn't sitting up there making false promises. He was telling you how it was going to be up to his expectations.
Yeah, I think when you're demanding like that could have went one or two ways, and the team responded to his challenges. And I think that's where you see the quality of a coach. Does the team respond to the coaching that they're getting?
Jim Miller, Tom Thayer, I'm Jeff Joniak. Coming up next, we'll take a look at some Bears getting attention from all the experts out there, and, of course, a look at Super Bowl 60. It's all coming up next here on Bears Weekly on ESPN 1000 of the Bears Radio Network.
Bears Weekly is back, and so are Tom Thayer and Jeff Joniak on ESPN Chicago.
This segment of Bears Weekly is brought to you by IGS Energy with Tom Thayer and Jim Miller. I'm Jeff Joniak. Joe Thuney, next-gen stat all-pro left guard. He and Quentin Nelson of the Colts, the only left guards to not allow a sack in 2025. And with Joe, the fourth lowest pressure rate percentage allowed, according to next-gen stats. The offensive line jumped from number 23 to number 5 best in interior pressure rate from a year ago, and from 20th to 2nd in success rate. We saw it with our own eyes, though, Tommy, deserving honor for Joe.
Oh, no doubt about it. Fortunately, he came in with experience at the center position. So then it was just kind of two guys relying on their experiences to develop a relationship that fits within the system best. But then you look to his left side, he played with basically 4 different players. When you talk about the 3 left tackles and some unbalanced line when you're lining that up next to a tight end, and then he was inserted at the left tackle position. You take the totality into consideration of what Joe did for this offensive line, for the locker room, for the development of his position specifically. It was as good as you've seen, and we saw his fundamentals and his techniques and his approach to the game was as good as anybody that I've seen throughout the course of my football life, and that's going back and thinking of guys like John Hanna that played for the New England Patriots back to the day, or Gene Upshaw, or just all these superstars at the position. Joe is in that same category.
Yeah, obviously with his experience coming from Kansas City, and it's all been good of what he's done in his career. And I think you got to give, again, that's Ryan Poles, because he's targeted good players, and Thuney was one of them. And when you think about it, 4/5 of that offensive line, which Tom can attest to, they swapped out. From Jackson coming in at the right guard and Drew Dahlman at center and Thuney at left guard. And then, of course, they didn't know about the left tackle position. How was that going to be filled? Ultimately, Ozzie Trapillo, until he got hurt, was filling that role, and then they had to kick Thuney out there for the playoff game. So I think you give a lot of credit to Dan Rochar, the offensive line coach, getting them all together. Again, he had their ear. They listened to some tough coaching, and they rectified what was a weakness a year previously, and it became a strength. Thuney, probably you don't want him at left tackle. He can play left tackle. That's going to have to be a position that's going to need to be filled here this offseason, and we'll see if Ozzie Trapillo obviously can heal up and fill that role. Otherwise, Ryan Poles will have to go and fill it again.
Jim and Jeff, I got one quick question for both of you guys to consider. Is Darnell Wright moving the left tackle a dead issue? Because say you go out there and you set your sights on somebody in the draft, and you guys just came from the Senior Bowl, and you see, oh my God, there's a guy right now that's a plug-and-play player that can go in there and play at a really high level. And so I'm just saying, when you guys think about the Bears and you think about how many position changes there have been, is that an issue that we're going to continue to revisit, or is it something that's off the table?
I would say it's my least favorite idea, because I love what he's doing at right tackle, but because of this organization and the way they think and approach, and Ben's creativity and Dan's trust at that coaching position, that anything's on the table.
I'm with you, Jeff. I think he's a right tackle. I think he's a power player that needs to be a right tackle. You and I saw some really good offensive linemen down there at the Senior Bowl, like who was it, Jennings, Dunker. The 2 Iowa guys can play. And so, whether they can draft a tackle and develop much like they did with, Darnell Wright, but I just see him as a right tackle. I think he's a power player.
Which leads me to this. Darnell Wright edged out Penei Sewell for the all-pro right tackle with next-gen stats. He allowed 1 quick pressure. These are some of the individual categories that they look at. One of 2 right tackles to do so among the 237 with 300 or more pass blocks in a season since 2018, when this all got going. That's a 0.3% sack rate allowed as well, the 3rd lowest. So those are some big-time numbers, and we saw how dominating, Tom, he is in the run game, mashing people, just clearing out bodies, putting them in the ground, washing guys out down the line of scrimmage all the way from right tackle, finishing up at left tackle across the linebacker level. It was a joy to watch that physicality blossom. He showed hints of that as a rookie.
That switch went on, and it stayed on from the moment that he came in here, and we walked away, and again, might have been the fourth game of the year. We said, wow, who is this guy in that 58 jersey? But then he was there the next week, and on until the end of the football season. And I can't wait to see what he does coming onto the field, the first padded practice and training camp next year, because he has to gain that new puff your chest out. He has to have that same kind of swagger when he comes out onto the field, and he's got to be counted on to be that guy. So, all power to him for getting everything out of him that we always thought that he had within him, and all power to Dan Rochar and his staff.
And Jim, he did it with a bad elbow. He did it with a bad right elbow. Yep. Missed one game, raced that bad boy up, and he said it was jacked up all season. So he fought through it. That tells me something also about a guy who's, the fifth-year option going to be picked up here. That's the next thing on the table, and a big contract for Darnell Wright down the road here.
Yeah, I think they'll definitely be picking up that option. But you're right. It does say a lot about him. He's going to give it up for his teammates and to play at that high level of consistency, and he wasn't 100%. And so I think for him, that's what he's going to focus on here this offseason, getting 100% healthy. But he knows, whatever tank he was diving into to get the mental toughness and strength to fight through, that is only going to benefit him and make him a stronger player in the future. And I think that's why they'll be picking up that option.
All right, we got to step away for another break. On the other side, we're joined by Connie Payton as part of our Bears Etc. podcast this week. Check it out wherever you get your podcasts. A wonderful conversation with matriarch of the Payton family with the NFL honors tonight, and that NFL Walter Payton Man of the Year Award, the most prestigious in the NFL. This is Bears Weekly on ESPN 1000 on the Bears Radio Network.
Welcome back to Bears Weekly, a Chicago Bears production on the flagship home of the Bears, ESPN Chicago.
This segment of Bears Weekly is brought to you by Athletical Physical Therapy. Visit athletico.com to request an in-clinic or virtual appointment and start feeling better tomorrow. With Tom Thayer and Jim Miller from SiriusXM NFL Radio, Jeff Joniak. As I alluded to before the break, Connie Payton was kind enough to spend some time with Tom and I on our Bears Etc. podcast, episode 207. Check it out. The always joyful and engaging Connie Payton, because she and her family always have a smile on their face. And a delightful person to talk to, reminiscing about what happened 40 years ago with her late husband, the Hall of Famer Walter Payton in Super Bowl 20, and now 40 years later, what the Super Bowl has become, what her emotions were over the course of that week, and also touching on what she experienced at Soldier Field in the playoff game, the divisional game against the L.A. Rams, all wrapped up in this portion of that podcast.
It's way beyond anything that we would have ever imagined. And, I remember being asked and going to, I think the game was in Atlanta in 99. The Super Bowl was in Atlanta in 99 when they had the kids and I come and saying they were going to change it to the Walter Payton Man of the Year. And I don't think I ever thought anything about Walter's charitable contributions, because it was just a part of who he was, and it was part of what he wanted to do. And he truly enjoyed, what he did, and his involved kids, and being that he would have been a teacher if he hadn't played football. So that was really his passion too, and to make a difference in the lives of kids. And so it was just, I don't think I had a clue as to where it would go. But I think it's, that these guys, it's just something they really want to do. But the league, too, had put a lot into truly making sure that these guys are recognized. And I think they have pushed to make it the most meaningful award to win. And nationwide, honestly, they truly have been incredible in what they've done and helping these guys and pushing it. And I know it's been good for their company, too. But no, we wouldn't have never imagined that it would be at this level. But we're really thrilled and happy, that Walter's name could be associated with something that's so meaningful and something that these players truly, truly want to win every year. Yeah.
Connie, it's so cool that it's so important to all these guys. So does each year take on a new year in terms of the players that you're getting introduced to and you're investigating, and you don't have to name them. Is there anybody since you've been picking this award that kind of still stands out to you, that in his unique accomplishments or what he's done, or someone that's just kind of, that you've grown an attachment with or to, that has stood out to be kind of special?
Well, to be honest, Tom, they truly all are special. When we get to meet these guys, they are so loving and so kind. And I'm just blown away in how, they're just in awe of meeting the kids and I, because we represent Walter. But, and I'm just thankful, too, that somehow most of the guys that I've really horned in on have truly made it, have won the award and been picked. I mean, there's been some years, only a few years, where I might have picked my nominee, might have not had won, but it was okay because he was still a winner in my heart. Like we tell the guys, there's only one trophy, but you're all winners. And it's too bad that we don't have 32 trophies that everybody can get an award, but that they're all men of the year as far as we're concerned. But for the most part, there's some years where it's changed, but some of these guys have been nominated 3 and 4 times on different teams. So some of the guys we see a repeat, of being nominated. And then there are years where it's, new guys that have been, that have come to the forefront for their teams.
Well, one of them's Peanut Tillman back in 2013. Also, Jim Flanagan won in 2000. Mike Singletary in 1990. Dave Duerson, the late Dave Duerson in 87. And Walter won it in 1977. Charles, that one, I was there for that. And that was awesome to see.
It was awesome because I have to admit he was my number one pick. And not because he played for the Bears. Had nothing to do with that.
Right. Yeah, that's true. It has nothing to do with that, for sure. How do you tell a cashier you're a Bears fan without telling them you're a Bears fan? With the Chicago Bears PNC Bank Visa Debit Card, which gets you exclusive discounts on Bears merchandise. Find out more at pnc.com/BearsCard. So every single time, without fail, that I see Connie Payton, Jared Payton, Brittany Payton, their spouses, your grandchildren, everybody's got a smile on their face. They are warm. They are humble. They are delightful to talk to and visit with, yourself included. Why is this? You guys are just bubbling with positivity and grace. I say that in all honesty. You and Walter, his legacy has filtered through your children and grandchildren in a very profound way, in my opinion.
Oh, well, thank you. But you know what? We're blessed because we just feel that, that everybody we approach too just have like this open arm effect to us. And I often tell the story that, and I've told the story like when Walter first passed, and which was probably one of the hardest things that I ever had to go through. But I found a lot of comfort in knowing that there was probably not one door in the city of Chicago that if I went and knocked on, that they wouldn't have opened the door and welcomed me in and given me love and hugs and everything I needed to comfort me. And I truly feel that that's what the city of Chicago has done for us, my family. They truly have just opened their arms and they've just pulled us in. So we feel that love and the grace that we get from the city. So it makes it easy. It truly does. We were so blessed to play in a city like Chicago with such awesome fans. I tell you, as much as I didn't want to come for the game, the last home game against the Rams because I was too nervous. And I even told Matt to me, I'm saying, Mom, I'll be honest with you. When I'm home, I don't watch the games because I feel like they're better off when I don't watch. And I'm like, yeah, I never thought I would have been superstitious, but I've gotten a little touch of that. And I said, now, if I come, I'm taking one for the team because I pace and I walk and I pray. And I said, not that everybody's not doing that same thing. And I'm like, but that's just how much I want them to win. So if I come, but I tell you, coming the other weekend, it was so powerful. And I told the kids, I'm like, I don't know if I felt this kind of excitement back in 85. I don't think I felt that. It was so electrifying being in that stadium that Sunday at that game. I tell you, it's a feeling that I will carry to my grave, with me for the rest of my life. It was so awesome to be there and experience that, with that city and those fans. It truly was.
Those guys brought up Virginia. Ben Johnson did after the season and the review of the season. But they played for the patch, that patch that was created by the McCaskey family. They played for that patch right over their hearts. And, there was some heaven-sent moments. Had to be, right?
Yes, indeed. Well, you know what? Again, we are just so thankful, for the relationship that we have with the McCaskey family. And Mrs. McCaskey really cared for Walter, and he loved her too. And they had, I think, a special relationship. And George McCaskey, oh my God, he's got to be one of my most favorite people in the world. And, to the point where, honestly, I just feel like, again, if we needed anything, we'd always pick up a phone and George will always be there with a listening ear and to help if he can. So we're very fortunate to have them by our side and just to be friends and be a part of the family. And honestly, it's just, I just think about being a part of the Chicago Bears and that whole history and and for everything the Bears has brought and done in the NFL and the league, and to know that Walter is a part of that in our family, and it will be forever and ever and ever. And we couldn't be more grateful and thankful for all the things that they wanted to do, like the statue and all of these things that we would have loved to have done, but we couldn't have afforded to and have it done, and to have them behind us and to make sure all that came to fruition and it's done. It's so meaningful. It truly is. And it will be there forever and ever for my grandkids, my great-grandkids, and their kids. It'll all be there.
Thomas, your question that kind of led the discussion about what happened 40 years ago. I didn't put it in there, but if you would share what you felt and you revealed to Connie Payton.
Listen, so Connie, she told us she's 72 years old. That's no secret. I met Connie 40 years ago, Jeff. She was 32 years old. And the first time I ever talked about this is because, Jim, in the second play of the Super Bowl, Walter fumbled, but it was my fault. And it was a bad combination block between myself and Keith Van Horn. I left Keith too early, let Garen Vera split us because I was going to go up to the linebacker, Stevie Nelson. And he would hit Walter before he could control the handoff, and Walter fumbled. And it's never left my memory. It's the worst play in the history of my football career. I thought as a Chicago person that I would be responsible for the Bears losing a Super Bowl. So I finally got to apologize to Connie Payton for it, and she, forgave me for it, but I still think about it, and when memories are brought up, it's something that will never leave you.
Well, it didn't keep him out of the Pro Football Hall of Fame, so you got nothing to worry about, Tom, because, just for me, I remember growing up as a kid, remember the shoes, the Roos, kangaroos. I bought those to be like Walter Payton. That's the impact he had on me. And, because the level of toughness, and when you have that great award, Walter Payton Award, and just what it stands for. But I just know his impact on me. He was your teammate, but that's what he had an impact on me. And, I thought I could run over anybody and jump over jump over my brother onto the bed. We broke so many bed springs at the end of the day, and my dad would get upset, but we were trying to dive over the top like Walter. And, what a great award.
Well, what really resonated with me, Tom, was she was a fan at the Rams game, a divisional playoff when Soldier Field was just erupting in that overtime loss. And she said she will go to her grave remembering that feeling in the building, unlike any other she's ever experienced. And she shares the same opinion that most Bears fans who were able to be in that building felt that day.
Well, it's like a volcano before it erupts. You kind of get that seismic activity that you kind of feel it coming. And those were the endings of some of those games that the Bears had throughout the season. But those playoff games, the end of the Green Bay game, that's when everything erupted like a feeling that none of us have ever had.
And that's why everybody's already excited about what's next. That adrenaline rush is still coursing through our veins, that's for sure. All right, we'll come back after this break with Jim Miller and Tom Thayer. This is Jeff Joniak on Bears Weekly on ESPN 1000 of the Bears Radio Network.
Jeff Joniak and Tom Thayer chatting about the Bears. It must be Bears Weekly.
Well, if it's Bears Weekly,
it must be the home of the Bears, ESPN Chicago.
This segment of Bears Weekly is brought to you by IGS Energy with Tom Thayer and Jim Miller. Time to dig in a little bit to Super Bowl Sunday. By the way, 19 years ago yesterday, Devin Hester kicked off Super Bowl 41 in the most electrifying way with that opening touchdown return. So that lives in our memories as well. But digging into this one, we got to start with quarterbacks. We'll start with Jim. Drake May, how injured is he? I know he answered questions very short. I'm fine. When asked if he's 100%, I'm fine. And then, of course, Sam Darnold, still working through an oblique, says he feels really good. Will these injuries impact the game?
I personally, I don't think they will. I think with how Sam Darnold played, in the championship round, he kind of removed all doubt that oblique is not going to be an issue for him. And hey, they've got their own play caller that's going to be moving on as well. When you look at Clint Kubiak, and then you look at Drake May in the season that he's had, and he may be the MVP when all this voting gets done. Look at who his play caller is. Josh McDaniels, I think this is his 10th Super Bowl. Josh McDaniels, I think this is his 10th Super Bowl as a play caller. So he's got great preparation behind him, and that's why I say this Super Bowl is going to be closer than people think. I think there is a level of toughness by the New England Patriots with how they're coached by Mike Vrabel, and I think the experience factor will really factor into it, and I think that really bodes well for Drake May. I'm not saying that they're going to win, but it's like nobody's given the New England Patriots a shot. They just think Seattle is going to walk all over them, and I just don't think that is the case at all. I think this is going to be a field goal game that's decided by one score.
Tom, a development with Nick Emenwari, the rookie, outstanding nickel defender, ankle, limping around after yesterday's practice, defending a pass late in practice. That could impact a secondary that is as nasty as there is in the NFL in terms of physicality.
Yeah, I mean, that's the worst thing you'd want to do is one of their more physical third-level players, be hobbled and then attackable because it's going to be evident early. But to me, hopefully that they weren't going through such a physical practice at this late stages of the season that it'll affect him going into the game because I know he's a young guy and, everybody says, oh, we could be back here again, but that's never a guarantee. So you would like to have your staff, your players as healthy as they could possibly be going into a game that is this enormous.
Tom, where are you leaning in terms of the path to victory for either team?
I think this is a 14-7 game. I think there will be more punts in this game than we've had in a Super Bowl in a long, long time. I think the path to victory is which quarterback makes the least amount of mistakes because we've seen Sam Darnold at his healthiest play poorly. And I think Drake May is, even though he's got MVP consideration, still there is great uncertainty about his performance in this type of a game. And is the crowd going to be 70-30 Seattle because they have an hour flight as opposed to a 5-hour flight?
These two defenses are a lot better than what people give them credit for, especially New England's. At New England started the year, they were one of the worst secondaries in the NFL. They were giving up over 300 yards a game in passing yardage, and they basically have cut that in half. In the last 4 games, I think they've only given up like 9 points a game. And so I'm with Tom. I think this is going to be a defensive battle. But one thing I like about Drake May and he has led their team in back-to-back weeks in rushing in not only the divisional round, but the championship round. He has won the games with his legs, and he doesn't seem to get rattled by the sacks. You know, they get negative yardage plays, and it doesn't seem to bother him or set the New England offense back at all, and they're able to overcome it. And earlier in the year, that was the case for Sam Darnold, but he's played a lot cleaner. So it certainly is going to come down to the least amount of mistakes. But when Drake May makes his mistakes, it doesn't seem to hurt the Patriots, and it's astounding to see. And so watch his legs. He's like a poor man's Josh Allen, in my opinion. Not quite as big as Josh Allen, but boy, he makes a lot of plays with his legs.
But I'm going to do some exploratory contact on that shoulder. If you come in here and for 2 weeks, they talk about a shoulder issue with the quarterback, and you want to rely on your running ability to win the game, I'm going to do some exploratory punishment on that to see how healthy you are.
Oh, you're so devious. But you're so correct. No, I know. You say, it's strategy. I'm going to go with, if you're saying 14-7, and I also am thinking it might be a low-scoring game, it's, which team's going to run the ball better? Because they both can run the football, and that the fronts are very vicious, no question about it. All right, we come back. Our final segment, Tom's Thoughts, and I'm going to give Jim some things to think about as well. It's all coming up next here on ESPN 1000 of the Bears Radio Network.
The Bears Weekly on the Bears Radio Network. Here's your host, the voice of the Bears, Jeff Joniak.
This segment of Bears Weekly brought to you by Athletico Physical Therapy. Visit athletico.com to request an in-clinic or virtual appointment and start feeling better tomorrow. Final segment reserved for Tom's Thoughts. But before we get into his thoughts, Jim, I saw a couple things this morning when I was just scanning X. Number one is Joe Flacco. I know everybody does these interviews at Radio Row. Everything's videotaped now, but he had some ideas about the rule book. One, quote, I don't think it should be roughing the passer when they land on us as quarterbacks. I think being slapped in the head should be roughing the passer. I don't think being slapped in the head should be roughing the passer. It honestly annoys me because it affects games in a negative way at random times. They can call it or not call it. It needs to get out of the game. How do you feel about that?
I agree 100%. I've been saying it the whole time. When a quarterback's trying to throw and the defender, whether it's a defensive end or a defensive tackle, when they're just swiping, trying to block the ball, and they call it a forcible blow on the quarterback. They're just swiping at the ball, trying to bat it down. And that ends up being a very punitive penalty. Because like you said, it's roughing the passer. It's a forcible blow. It could be like a 3rd and 15 situation. And now you get an automatic first down. For me, it's just too punitive. It's too punitive, and I'd say that about defensive pass interference, too. I think it's too big of a penalty when you have that, what do they call it, point, or what is a spot foul is what they call it. I just think it's too punitive, for teams and what you got to deal with. So, and as for the weight on the quarterback, it happens, man. It's, you're out there, you're playing football, and a guy who's now, if he's trying to body slam the quarterback, I think we can all see that that's egregious. But a player's weight just landing on the quarterback, again, is too punitive. I'm totally with Joe Flacco, and I played the position, and I don't think it's right. Oh,
bravo to Joe for standing up for all quarterbacks of the past and the future. And I've heard that rule before. And if you have a question, throw the flag.
For Tom's thoughts, Tom, have you spent a lot of time in your thoughts pre-Super Bowl this week? What do you got?
A lot of I've taken you guys into consideration with my first one. My first one is, Ben has gifted us more to pay attention to. And when I was listening to you guys at the Senior Bowl, I'm thinking you guys are on the field. You guys are getting visual. So things that I've thought about my whole life, I think about completely different. Now I think about the dirty yards and a back's ability to block. I think about a wide receiver ability to block and how they run the ball. And then I look at the offensive line, a variety of positions that one guy can offer a team, and then the multiple uses for a tight end. So when I was watching the Senior Bowl practices, I took all this into consideration rather than, a running back gets a handoff. How does he run the ball? Or a tight end's lined up on the line of scrimmage. How does he help the offensive tackle? So I think Ben has really gifted us a lot of things to look at football differently in either looking at tape of free agents, considerations from the combine, or like you guys having a feed-on approach to the Senior Bowl.
Well, Jim, we saw plenty of guys that checked those boxes for Tom's thoughts there for sure.
Yeah, well, look at the tight end position and what they did with Loveland this year. I mean, that's a case in point of how a player was featured. I think he finished the year. He was the Bears' leading receiver, was he not?
Yes.
Target-wise,
and reception yards. Yep.
Yeah, and then obviously later in the year they started to get everybody else involved. But yeah, there's plenty of players like from the Senior Bowl that, even from the quarterbacks like Garrett Nussmeier and how they were featured, but I think the offensive linemen and how they were able to run the football, some things in football just don't change. If you lead the league in rushing the ball, the play action pass game really thrived this year for the Bears. And I think it's from those draft picks to the offensive linemen that they signed. And look what Eric Bieniemy did with, Swift and Cal Monungai. That was a really good backfield. And those guys, Monungai is a late round draft pick, and look at the impact that he had. So again, I go back to coaching matters and how a coach is going to feature players. And certainly those players earned it as well. They got it right on all those players that they selected.
All right, Tom, number 2 is Dennis Gifts.
Yeah, Dennis Allen. Gifts also going back to the Senior Bowl. Okay. What is Shamar Turner going to be? Because you have to give him time to reconstruct his body either into that of a defensive end or that of a defensive tackle. I don't think that you play him size-wise the same. And so I would like to see where they have their sights set on him from going. And then when he was able to switch TJ Edwards and TJ and Tremaine, is there versatility and some up-and-comers in the linebacker position that can fill that role where they have to play multiple positions and not just exclusive to one side? And then when you look at Nishan, C.J. Gardner, and DeMarcus, these guys were able to fill in place with very little notice. And so I was talking to my defensive back mentor, Gary Fensick, the other day, and I was talking to him about Tyreek Stevenson. And when I think of the void fill at safety position, I always thought that Tyreek Stevenson is the most physical defensive back since he's been here. Is he a guy that could go into that safety position and give you immediate employment and be able to fill a role at that position, especially if you have Terrell Smith coming back?
Things to ponder, Jim. Things to ponder. Yeah. See, Tom's thoughts make you think. Put that thinking cap on.
I like what Dennis Allen did as a coach. I think he should be voted, defensive assistant of the year. That's how well I thought he, play called in games. You look at that Rams game, I don't think they gave Matthew Stafford the same look every single time. I mean, you force the Rams into 8 punts and you get the sacks on Matthew Stafford. I mean, guys were getting clean and free. I mean, whether it's Brisker, whether it was Kyler Gordon, that is tough to do against a veteran quarterback. So I think they're in good hands with Dennis Allen. I really think the defense is going to take a step forward, and they're going to add some pieces to the puzzle where they'll be even, stronger up front where you need to be as a defense. So kudos to Dennis Allen.
All right, we got 1 minute to go. Super Bowl can't use nickels and dimes. Tom?
Right. So, we all had an opinion about the Super Bowl, and my opinion is whatever team has the longest play wins the game. And so if you look at the New England Patriots, they have a 72-yard pass, a 37-yard run. And then you look at Seattle, they have a 100-yard return and a 95-yard play, both by Rashid Shaheed. So whichever team has the longest play that computes to points wins the game.
Well, Drake May led the NFL in downfield completions with 112 and 99 under pressure. So maybe Tom's feeling the New England Patriots with that. But Shaheed is something.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't even try to kick it to Rashid.
Right.
I mean, why even open yourself up to that type of pain? So they'll take him out of the game plan just by not kicking or punting to him overall. And I agree with you about Drake May. Again, I think the Super Bowl, I'm not as low scoring as you guys. I think it's like 24-21, and it could go either way. But as I said, Drake May with his legs, I think he had the biggest plays running the ball against Denver as well in order for them to move on in that game. So whether his shoulder's injured or not, I think he'll be ready to go, and all those things are going to factor in this Super Bowl.
All right, and shout out to two local kids playing in the Super Bowl, Patriots linebacker Robert Spillane from the Fenwick Friars, and, of course, Julian Love from Nazareth High School, the Seattle safety and former Golden Domer. That's going to wrap us up. Thank you so much for listening, everybody. The executive producer of the Bears Radio Network is Eric Skrosky. Thank you to Kendra Smith in studio and all our producers. For Jim Miller from SiriusXM NFL Radio and Tom Thayer, I'm Jeff Joniak. This has been Bears Weekly on the radio home of the Chicago Bears, ESPN Chicago. Coming up next, Amber and Ian. Have a good night, everybody.